Welcome to the Right Sexual Gear and Kitchen Utensils. I'm Dr. Alex Ryan of the Love Doctors. You can visit lovedoctors.com.au to learn more about us. In this presentation, we're going to be covering a number of issues around sexuality and how to get into the right gears so that you can have more intimacy in your relationship, more satisfying intimacy with your partner. What we're going to cover in this video is firstly the good enough sex model, then we're going to cover touch, the 5 gears, and then using utensils, which is a fun ending to the whole video series. The first section on good enough sex model will look at the issue of what a new model of looking at sexuality rather than looking at perfect sex. When we're looking at a model where we're operating from different assumptions about when we're interacting sexually with our partner. And the whole idea here is that we're trying to achieve good enough sex rather than perfect sex, a sexuality that is a more mature sexuality, way over and beyond what it is when you're a teenager or in your 20s. The touching, of course, is the 5 gears, a great little metaphor to understand how touching works in a relationship and how you can become more intimate and connected with your partner. See, most relationships only have 2 gears, which is basically affectionate touch and also the 5th gear, which is intercourse. And the reason that couples drift apart physically and lose emotional and physical and sexual connection is because only using 2 gears. They need to use as more gears than that, up to 5 gears. And if they use 5 gears, generally couples have a very sexually fulfilling life and they actually have a great sexual relationship and generally a great relationship around that. And of course, using utensils is one of the gears, of course, is about using objects to attain sexual satisfaction with your partner, with yourself, if you like. But using utensils is the kitchen, getting into the kitchen and using some kitchen utensils to be able to stimulate your partner and basically prime each other for a great sexual experience in and around the kitchen and also up in the bedroom, hopefully. I've got a PhD in psychology, and that PhD was around anger and aggression. And what I learned very early on is that anger is an emotion that can be stored very much inside of us. It's actually considered to be a bad emotion. People tend to underreport when they're angry. And the reason they do that is because it's been branded negatively. So in relationships, we can tend to harbor anger in our relationships. I learned this very quickly when I started working with couples, that there was a lot of hidden anger and resentment and frustrations that people weren't really openly discussing with their partner. Communication lines have become broken down. So that's a bit about me. And I work with couples. That's my specialization. I've done that for several years, and I've seen hundreds of couples and learnt a lot about couples and how to take them from states of complete despair in their relationship, even separation and even extreme aggression, to the point that they're actually living together harmoniously and having a great relationship and having the relationship they really dreamed of, or they imagined when they first got together, or they first started having a serious relationship, or even got married. Let's talk a bit about good enough sex rather than perfect sex. So this is a new model, and to kick us off, I want you to go to your fun sheet. So you've downloaded that. If you haven't, go to the underneath this video, you'll see a download button. You can download our worksheets, and these fun sheets are one document, and you can actually start filling in. Look under video series 1 or video 4, sorry, video 4, not 1, and you'll see the first question. I'd like you to fill that in. What are your ideas about sex with your partner? In other words, what are your beliefs about sex with your partner? So just spend a moment there to write your answer in there, because this will give us a good framework to work from during this video. See, in the traditional way of looking at a relationship, it's like yin and yang. If you look at that top diagram there on the left-hand side, left top hand side, that's the yin and yang symbol, isn't it? Yin and yang. And basically that is that male and female, and often it's used as male-female psychology. So in times gone by in history, we've looked at male and female psychology as, as opposite halves or opposite sides of the same coin. So what you're doing is you're looking for someone to complete you. You're looking for your better half. We even have metaphors in our language, like, she's my better half, or where's my other half. So we've actually used that. It's embedded in our language, and the reason is we actually believe in it. We believe in that, when we're teenagers, particularly, or young adults, we believe that we're going to find someone who's going to complete us, the perfect relationship that we can have a great time with and feel more satisfied within ourselves and happier within ourselves because we've found that person. Now, that's the old traditional way of looking at it, and that pervades or seeps into sexuality. We think that our job then is, if that's our opposite half, then we have to sexually satisfy that person. And of course, that runs us into great problems, particularly when the intimacy lust period of the relationship, which lasts only a few months to 2 years, dies off. What happens after that? That person is no longer there to complete us, and vice versa, we're no longer there to complete them. Sexual satisfaction is something you have to work on in your relationship. You can't work on it when you're operating from that philosophy or from that let's say paradigm. Now, if you look down at the right hand side, this is a new way, bottom right hand side, where it says John Smith and Mary Smith. They're obviously married, aren't they? Unless they were cousins and married each other. Just kidding. Anyway, so basically, John and Mary Smith have this relationship where they're actually two independent people and they form a union, but the union is not a complete circle. It's basically just an overlap. And so when we start to think about sexuality, at least in the relationship, not even on the emotional level, we say, okay, John Smith is responsible for his orgasms. Mary Smith is responsible for her orgasm and her sexual satisfaction. But that overlap is where they work as a team and they can pleasure each other. So it's a matter of giving and receiving pleasure to each other, but we still have to be responsible for our own sexual satisfaction and orgasm and also libido. So what is the good enough sex model? Basically, the good enough sex model is the idea that that we work as a team when we're having sex. And not as a team as in more people, it's just you and your partner, of course. And basically what you're trying to do here is you're trying to work with your partner in order to reach a sense of sexual satisfaction in the relationship. So when you're having sex with your partner, you can have the full range of experience with them, and you can guide and instruct your partner to teach you and educate them on how you can be sexually satisfied in the relationship and vice versa. And you work as a team to explore your sexuality rather than working from the standpoint that your partner needs to satisfy you sexually and you get frustrated when they can't. That's a situation where we're looking for perfect sex versus good enough sex. Now, what happens in the old model of when you're trying to do perfect sex and satisfy your partner, looking for that sexual satisfaction, is it builds up a performance-related situation. In other words, you're expected, you feel, and this could be perceived or it could be self-imposed, you expect that you have to satisfy your partner, so it builds up a lot of anxiety and stress in sexuality. This is where some sexual disorders can actually start. So if you're finding difficulties as a male, having erectile problems, in other words, you can't get it up, what you'll probably finding is that there's a lot of stress and anxiety building up to having sex. Is anticipatory anxiety, as we call it. You're anticipating a stressful situation, one where you have to perform. And in this model, sex is seen as a pass-fail scenario. In other words, you either pass, you orgasm and help your partner orgasm, or you fail. In other words, you can't get it up or you can't orgasm at all. And it goes the same way with a female. But in the new model of good enough sex, there's no pressure on you to make your partner orgasm. You just work together in a relaxed, calm, sort of balanced way and try and work together and explore each other's sexuality without any pressures of performance or expectations of having to go anywhere with sexuality. And in the good enough sex model, we work from a range of affection, which can then lead into sensuality and then into sexuality. A lot of people perceive sexuality as not that full range of affection, sensuality, sexuality. They see sexuality just as intercourse. And this, of course, skews the way we interact with our partner on that intimate level and actually leads to a lot of problems in the bedroom and out of the bedroom if you're doing it outside the bedroom, of course. To help you and aid you in understanding the sort of spectrum of affection, through to sexuality, I want to explain to you the 5 gears of touch, and this will help you understand how this whole thing fits together. Now, in your relationship, in order to develop skill with your partner in your relationship, what you need to do is you need to understand that as a couple, you're there to experience touch on 5 dimensions, ranging from, the first gear where you're just warming up, all the way up to fifth gear where you're overheating and you're basically, on the point of ecstasy and hyperstimulation. In other words, orgasming or close to it, multiple orgasming if you're lucky enough. And the core thing about the 5 gears is that each gear allows you to ascend to a point where you're in the optimum state to be able to orgasm during sex and to have a strong connection with your partner. So the first gear, of course, is affectionate touch, and this usually involves clothes on, touching each other, such as holding hands, hugging, or kissing. Okay, affectionate touch is not considered to be sexual. It's such an intimate attachment. Now, the second gear is a bit different. This involves non-genital touch, which is also called non-genital pleasuring, which can be clothed, semi-clothed, or even nude. And sensual touch can include a head or back or foot massage or rub, cuddling on the couch while you're watching a movie or a DVD, or a trust position where you feel safe and connected with each other. I mean, maybe even just sleeping together and, holding each other. This is a sensual touch. And of course, this is then leads on to the third gear, which is playful touch. And of course, this moves on to genitalia. So this intermixes genital with non-genital touch, also called genital pleasuring. And this can be semi-clothed or nude. This playful touching can include, being in the shower and touching each other, or full body massages, seductive or erotic dancing. Oh, I like that part of it. So erotic dancing, playing games such as strip poker. Have you played strip poker before? You should try it out, or spin the bottle, or Twister. I love Twister as a sexual game. That's a great way of having fun with your partner. Really lots of fun. You can laugh and have a good time. The fourth gear is erotic touch, and this is the most challenging gear because erotic non-intercourse touch can include manual, oral, rubbing, or vibrator stimulation. And of course, the most challenging gear because it doesn't have to lead to intercourse and orgasm, and some couples jump over this one, right? They don't have enough of this, manual, oral, rubbing stimulation or vibrator stimulation. And so I'm going to talk about utensils because this is sort of going into the third and fourth gears. And then, of course, erotic touch can be mutual or one way and can also proceed to orgasm or transition into intercourse being more penetrative sex. So that's the fifth gear. And, the core concept here is to understand that it's not pass fail as a sexual performance. It's building up to intercourse and then going with the flow with that and flowing with erotic energy in such a way that you're able to orgasm naturally. Let's talk a bit about kitchen utensils. So, we're talking a bit about, third and fourth gears, which is sort of, non-genital, intermixes genital and non-genital touching, which is the third gear, and the fourth gear, of course, is erotic touching, which involves objects. Now, in the kitchen, you can get the ball rolling. You can actually start to get your libido juices or your sexual energy stimulated very, very easily by starting to use some kitchen utensils. Have you ever used an egg beater and tried to use the ends of those, one of those manual egg beaters, and you can go run around and try and use that over your partner's body and have some fun with that, and also go for the genitalia region as a way of having a bit of fun. And you have lots of fun with this. We do this all the time in the kitchen, my wife and I. Wooden spoon, of course, once you're using that and you're not cooking, of course, and got food all over you, can whack your partner or tap her on the bum or tap him on the bun, and you could, play around with that as well. The tongs, of course, you can, fiddle around and try and tickle your partner with the tongs and try and get that erotic touch happening. And the roller, of course, is fantastic because you can use a roller for massaging. It's a fantastic implement for that. So you can pull the roller out and just give your partner a nice shoulder roller massage or a back massage with the roller. It's an amazing way to make your partner really relax. And see, what happens is if you're able to do it, across the bum and the back, what will happen is they'll be relaxed, but they also start to feel an erotic energy developing. It's this stimulation, so to speak. And this stimulation, of course, can then lead to arousal, and then arousal can lead to orgasm. But what tends to happen is when people are not using all those sexual gears, when they're only using... See, the thing about couples, they tend to only use 2 gears. They use the first gear, which is affectionate touch, and they'll kiss each other when they see each other and they'll hug. And then they go straight to intercourse without any foreplay. And what happens here is they're jumping too many gears, and what happens over time is that their sexuality becomes very boring and understimulating because there's only 2 gears. There's not enough intimacy and sexual energy happening. And then what happens is that there's a lot of tension that occurs around, and frustration occurs around sex, because you're only jumping 1 gear to 5th gear, and the 5th gear isn't enjoyable because enough, arousal hasn't occurred or stimulation before there's actually, an intercourse and orgasm. And of course, when frustration builds, it leads to embarrassment, and then because the sex hasn't been that good, it's been poor, and you've been dissatisfied, or your partner's been dissatisfied with it, and then you will start to avoid having sex with each other. So that's sort of the negative cycle of sexuality. The positive cycle, of course, is you positively anticipate having sex, you look forward to it, and then you stimulate each other using a more ranges of gears than you use now, which leads to arousal, and then through arousal you're able to segue or transition into orgasm much easier. And of course, if couples can learn to add 1 or 2 gears to the 1st gear and 5th gear, add a couple of gears, even just 1 to start off with. If you can do that, your relationship's gonna really fly. So what I want you to do now, go to your fun sheet, and I want you to look at what is good enough sex. So write down your interpretation of good enough sex. Just write that down. And go to the question 3, which is, what are the 5 gears? And write those down. 1st gear is affectionate touch, 2nd gear is sensual touch, 3rd gear is playful touch, 4th gear is erotic touch, 5th gear is intercourse. And write down the 5 gears. You might want to pause this while you're doing it. And now have a think about which one you use the most. Which of those 5 gears do you use the most? Like I said, most couples only use 1st gear, affectionate touch, and they transition directly into intercourse. What you might find is that you're having oral sex as well, or you're doing a lot of rubbing or manual vibrator stimulation, or using implements and tools. That means you're using 1st gear, 4th gear, and 5th gear, probably 4th and 5th gears. What you need to do is you can still play on the 2nd and 3rd gears. Sort of more lovey-dovey things on the couch where you're hugging each other and, cradling and giving each other massages, and then ascending to, an intermixing of genital and non-genital touching, which is 3rd gear. Now, I want you to go now to question 5, which is, which gears does your partner use the most? Which ones do you think he or she uses the most? Now, I want you to go to question 6 now, because this question asks you to write down which gear are you going to introduce into your sexual experience with your partner. Great to discuss it with your partner, this, by the way. If they haven't seen this video, you need to show it to them so they can also understand, they can be on the same page as you. Then I want you to write down, and what I want you to do is write down a gear, and also write down what you're going to do within that gear. So if that means playing strip poker or Twister, something fun like that, or doing some erotic massaging, full body massaging, one good thing is, you might want to put some massage oil on your partner and you, and then you rub up and down as a body massage, a frontal with your partner, or you might just want to massage your partner, full body massage. That would be introducing a 3rd gear. So we're looking at a gear we're introducing plus a specific task that you'll do with your partner next time you have sex. Okay, so what did we learn today? We learned the good enough sex model. Basically, this is not about perfect sex. This is about having sex which is based on, you taking care of your own orgasm and educating your partner on how to have that orgasm, and also working as a team and exploring your sexuality and making sure that both of you are pleasured. The 5 gears of touch, of course, we went through in depth, and we also talked about using utensils, which is great on the 2nd and 3rd gear components. Basically, utensils I've introduced here because people don't tend to use 2nd and 3rd gears, so it's really good to introduce utensils and do it in the kitchen while you're doing aphrodisiac foods and eating, and it's just fantastic. All right, thank you very much for being on this video. Really appreciate you listening and watching this series. And as a thank you too, if you haven't seen this before, you probably have if you watched the previous videos, but if you haven't, go to areyoufakingit.com.au. You've got a free gift there. You can download the chapter 1 of Are You Faking It, the book that every woman should read, which is a book that my wife Mari Ryan and myself have written. And basically you can download that for free, no obligation, put your name and email in the field, and you also get a series of 20 videos which help you spice up your relationship. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Okay, well, thanks very much for your time, and enjoy yourself in and out of the bedroom.